What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm going to try out a Shadow Cacturne team in the Jungle Cup. This Pokemon is one of the highest attack Pokemon in the entire meta. It has Sucker Punch as a fast move, so a lot of fast move pressure. Combine that with Trailblaze to ramp up your attack, and this Pokemon, even if it's resisted, does a ton of damage. I'm going to pair it up today with Altaria as well as Shadow Quagsire running Water Gun, so let's get into the battles and see what this Pokemon can do. Alright, let's get into the first game. We're going to see Shadow Cacturne into a Shadow Gyarados. Now, you might expect this matchup to be pretty neutral here, but honestly, I bet Shadow Cacturne is actually pretty good. Look at the fast move pressure, nearly just punching this down. I'm sure I can actually just one shield, punch all the way through the Shadow Gyarados here. The fast move pressure is just absolutely ridiculous on this Pokemon. We see a Shadow Scizor come in. I have a Dynamic Punch ready to go. They might no-shield. It could be a Trailblaze bait. Looks like they do shield the Scizor, though. In comes our Water Gun Quagsire, and these Water Guns are just shredding through the HP once again of this Shadow Scizor. I'm going to shield just in case they go for a Trailblaze, which they actually do. I don't want to get one shot here, saying the Shadow Scizor could be a little bit tricky for a backline. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail, trying to get a shield back right before a Night Slash has been reached. In comes a move. Our opponent going to go for the shield, actually. And now, I just snipe him down. They're greedy. They try to go for the Trailblaze, but down goes the Shadow Scizor. In comes that Gyarados once again. And I think at this point, the Water Guns plus the Aqua Tail should be enough. In comes the attack. Our opponent going for the no-shield. I guess they don't really have a choice in the matter. There's no shields remaining. And Torterra in the backline. One of the best possible Pokemon to see. That is a quick victory in the first game. Next matchup here is Shadow Cacturne into Shadow Charizard. Honestly, I bet this isn't terrible, saying Sucker Punch is such a good move, but I also have two Pokemon that do resist Fire-type damage in the backline. If I can help it, I don't necessarily want to just lock my Grass-type in, so I'm going to swap out, go into Shadow Quag, and Water Gun has already taken away about half the HP on that Charizard. In the backline, we're going to see a Gastrodon come in, a Pokemon that is pretty bulky, so maybe they can survive two Aqua Tails here. In comes that first move. Our opponent does end up letting it go. In comes their second attack, and it is almost certainly a Body Slam being thrown. With that said, I think I can get a nice farm down with our Altaria against this Pokemon. I might take 2 or 3 Body Slams, but I know in the process I'll get a lot of energy, and because of the fast move pressure we've already got against that Charizard, I feel like we're not in a terrible spot. In comes a move. It's likely a Body Slam, as we did say earlier. Everything else is going to be resisted. In comes the attack. Body Slam is going to be the move of choice, and they are at a second. With that said, I don't think a third is going to come through. I think we can Dragon Breath down in time, and we're basically at 100 energy here. So at this point, Altaria has been loaded. They don't really have a lot of ways to absorb this energy unless they have like a Pokemon in the backline that just resists both flying and fire-type damage. Our opponent, though, brings in a Drapion as their final Pokemon. And honestly, this Pokemon is a little bit scary. Shadow Drapion isn't necessarily a good Pokemon or a bad Pokemon for Altaria to seem, but at this point, chip down so low, I might even be in just Aqua Tail range over time. This might be a bit of a crazy play, but I'm going to swap into our Shadow Cacturne here. Sucker Punch, while it is resisted, is still adding up quite a bit, but we have to keep in mind these Poison Stings are super effective against us. That damage as well is doing so much, but I have a Dynamic Punch ready here. Our opponent goes for a nice catch on the Charizard, but I had to knock it out one way or another, so honestly, I'm fine knocking it out here. Down goes the Shadow Charizard. In comes the Shadow Drapion once again. Our fast food pressure is tearing this thing apart. They go for a charge attack here. Honestly, at this point, I think I just need the fast food pressure to win this game. I'm going to shield this up, try to go for a Dynamic Punch, don't quite reach it, and I'm going to bring in Altaria as my final Pokemon. Punch is going to do a lot of damage, but I still think I hang on just barely here. I'm going to try our best to Dragon Breath down, and just barely on 1 HP we do. Down goes Drapion, GG to our opponent. Next game is a Furret in the lead, and this Pokemon is kind of a similar Pokemon to Cacturne. It's a Sucker Punch user that has Trailblaze, but the thing about it is we do actually resist Sucker Punch damage, whereas they are only neutral to it, and we have that stab Sucker Punch damage, although because of how squishy we are, honestly, the damage does not look all that different here, but I will go for the Trailblaze, ramp up my attack stat, and see what they want to do. They actually end up shielding here, and look at my Sucker Punches. They are just shredding this Pokemon right now. Furret does not want to take this damage whatsoever. In comes that second Swift. I'm going to shield this up, farm down, and throw a charge attack at whatever wants to come in. Our opponent goes for the Altaria swap out, actually. And believe it or not, I don't have a hard counter to this Pokemon, so I'm going to go for a Dynamic Punch. That was resisted damage. I know it was +1, but that is still an insane amount of damage to land into an Altaria with a Dynamic Punch. I bring in my own Altaria, hopefully no Dragon Pulse or Moonblast shenanigans. No, just a Sky Attack comes through. Hopefully I can farm down, just barely we can. Down goes Altaria. We still have a bit of HP on our Cacturne. We don't know what's in the back, though. Furret might come back in, but I think they're pretty low at this point. So yeah, we actually see the final Pokemon, and it's a Shadow Scizor. So this Pokemon's not terrible to see. I have Flamethrower as well as Sky Attack. I go for the guaranteed shield here, and now if I can, I'm going to go for the Sky Attack right before they're going to be able to knock us out with a Night Slash. This move here should be able to get a knockout against our opponent. Actually, maybe not quite yet. No, not quite yet, but I can actually just swap out, go for 2 Sucker Punches, knock out that Shadow Scizor, and now Water Guns should be enough here to knock out the Furret, and just barely take the win there. GG to our opponent. Next game, Cacturne up against a Shadow Gyarados. We saw this a little bit early. The fast move pressure against our opponent is just unreasonable. The Sucker Punches here are shredding through their HP. As long as they stay in, all I need to do is tap my screen. Don't even throw a charge attack, and I can guarantee a farm down without needing to do anything. Down goes Gyarados before they can even reach a second Aqua Tail. We have a lot of energy, but Abomasnow is instant GG's in the back line. Oh my goodness, that is exactly what I did not want to see there. Yeah, as you can tell, the grass and ice combination, very bad for Quagsire and Altaria, especially in that situation when they be up energy, so we did not play that one out. Very quick game. Anyway, this next game playing out here, they ended up having, I think it was a Quagsire in the lead, and a Pangoro with Rock Slide on the safe swap. I thought this was a good counter swap for just a second, but then I realized last time Jungle Cup was around, people were running, for some reason, these Rock Slide Pangoros. And because of that, I think that I'm going to lose switch advantage in this game, and that's not ideal. But I guess at this point, too, it's not like Quagsire is the worst for my own Quagsire to see. I'm up energy with my own Quag. I can potentially put in some work here, and we'll see what we can do. I'm hoping at this point they're a Night Slash as well as Rock Slide, but I guess it could be a close combat. No, luckily just a Night Slash comes through. Down goes a bit of our HP, but they're already at a second. I think at this point, the only way I win this game is by committing to a Shadow Cacturne sweep. I no-shield that once again. We have an Aqua Tail loaded. We swap into our Cacturne. In the back line is the second Sire. It's going to be the Clodsire, though. This Pokemon with Poison Sting is going to do super effective damage to us, and while I do a lot of damage to them, I think we're going to be chipped down just a little bit too much to win this game. Yeah, I mean, Trailblaze does a lot here, and my Sucker Punches are doing quite a bit of damage, but it's a simul KO. Unfortunately, my shields are useless here in this game. They end up knocking us out, and I did not use a single one. Next game, Shadow Cacturne. Oh boy, into Guzzlord. Alright, well, this Pokemon is a little bit tricky once again for our team, but what I can do is I can safe swap my Quagsire, and while Water Gun here is technically resisted, the damage does add up quite a bit. But Guzzlord in this new season has so much pacing. It can go for a Dragon Claw, it just spams out moves so quickly now. And I'm going to go for a bait here. It could be a Stone Edge, our opponent likely will end up shielding, but if they do no shield, that could be kind of bad. In comes that Aqua Tail, our opponent does end up shielding that first attack, and because I got the bait off, I actually do get another Aqua Tail against them, which while this is not the most damage in the world, it might put them into a range where I can Dragon Breath down a little bit easier, or maybe go for, I don't know, a Sucker Punch down against them. Either way, we'll see what we can do. In comes Altaria. Our opponent brings in the Dunsparce. I thought that was a Furret for a second. No, Dunsparce, not exactly the Pokemon that I want to see. I don't resist the fast food pressure. They are pretty spammy as well. And because at this point they did bait out our Cacturne once again, that does mean all that Guzzlord energy is likely going to go into our poor little cactus. In comes Dynamic Punch. Our opponent has to shield this if they want to survive, but down goes Dunsparce. Likely in comes that Guzzlord. Let's see what they want to do. Yeah, Guzzlord does come right back in. This Pokemon is so loaded on energy. I'm going to shield what I'm hoping is a Dragon Claw. We do shield the Dragon Claw properly. Our Sucker Punches are adding up, but they're already at another move. I'm hoping this is a Brutal Swing, but I know how much energy they have. They're going to be already at another Dragon Claw. Cacturne goes down. In the backline is a Talonflame. If this was Shadow Talonflame, there's a chance a Sky Attack would be enough to knock out, but I don't think we quite have the damage in the tank here on Altaria to win this game. Sky Attack comes through. It is going to draw that first shield. I have another Sky Attack ready to go, and I'm going to go for a CMP here, hoping that they go for a Brave Bird and hoping that I survive to make it so I can Dragon Breath down. But our opponent goes for that Fly, so now I just have to hope that Fly is going to, or the Sky Attack on my side is going to be enough to knock them out. In comes a move. Our opponent is going to survive. Can't quite snipe him down with that Dragon Breath. Super close game. Down goes Altaria, though, and can't quite come back from a pretty bad lead. GG to our opponent. That was a pretty close game, though, I guess all things considered with how bad that was. All right, Shadow Cacturne. All right, into Unova Stunfisk. Maybe one of the best Pokemon this team can see. I would love it if they stay in the sleep, but no, they swap out instead into a Jumpluff. And at this point, I mean, I have my Shadow Quagsire as well as my Cacturne that are both pretty good into that Unova Stunfisk, so I'm not that worried at this point about winning switch advantage. I more so just want this Jumpluff gone, so as long as I land a single Sky Attack, that's all I really care about. They did show they have Acrobatics, and Fairy Wind is super effective against us, so while they are a Grass type into our Flying typing, they actually have a decent amount of play into us. I think that we would survive in Acrobatics just barely, but our opponent doesn't even throw it. They end up overfarming, maybe thinking the same thing as me, that the Acrobatics wouldn't be enough, so they might as well build up more energy. I do land a Sky Attack, so at this point, Altaria's job is done. Likely another Acrobatics coming through. No, they actually go for an Aerial Ace bait. That's an interesting play. They will get a second Aerial Ace off against our Cacturne, but the way I see it, Cacturne up energy is going to be kind of hard to take down. I'm going to swap it in, saying I have so much play into that Ufisk, but we are met instantly by a Shadow Talonflame, probably one of the worst Pokemon I could see here. Luckily, Dynamic Punch would knock him out if they let it go. Our opponent realizing that, though, they do shield this up. That would have been a very satisfying knockout, I'm not going to lie, but down goes Cacturne, but I think Shadow Water Gun Quagsire has enough to win this game. I'm going to wait down my timer just in case I do need a catch here in this game. And in comes our Quagsire. These Water Guns are ripping apart this Shadow Talonflame. In the backline is still that Ufisk. They don't have any energy. Even if they did, I don't think it would really matter. We just have so much damage. Our opponent realizes that, and Quagsire closes out the endgame. Next matchup is not a great lead, but it could be on Volt Switch, I guess. We test it, and we lose about half of our HP to 2 or 3 Bug Bites, so that's not ideal. And we are met by a Drampa as well, so I guess speaking about not ideal situations, this one is getting worse. In comes the Swift against us. I know I do survive that. I might be able to bait a Stone Edge against them, which I'm going to go for. This Drampa is pretty squishy. They would have to shield if they want to end up keeping Switch, and I mean, with a lead like Forretress into a Cacturne, I would imagine they do. Yeah, they shielded up, and honestly, they didn't really have to throw energy here, but they do, which gives us maybe a little bit of an opening. I know my Cacturne is pretty useless at this point up against that Fortress, so no real reason to save it too much in the backline, but I can shield this up, go for a big farm down, and maybe I can land a Dynamic Punch or something against Fortress. Maybe they get a shield from us, or maybe I get a shield from them even, but they bring in that Fortress, and man, these Bug Bites are shredding me apart. I should have probably just swapped instantly here, but I didn't really have a lot of time to react. I throw the move, they do let it go, and I have to hope in the backline is something that I have play into. But the way that they play this out, this is honestly so bad. They have so much energy here. They can go for Rock Tomb, permanently debuff my Altaria. And while I can farm them down, there is likely nothing in the backline that I could realistically beat. If I still had Cacturne, as a way to clear the debuff, maybe there'd be a chance. But well, I don't beat that. I can guarantee you that much. Shadow Smackdown Tyranitar. All right, well now I've seen it all. No, maybe now I have. The Zangoose could be on Shadow Claw. I'll test a fast move once again. I see it's on Fury Cutter, so I have to swap out. Not exactly the best situation. Once again, kind of getting core broken by our opponent. I know they could have close combat here. I know I survive it though, so I no shield. And in comes a Golisopod, which is not inherently the best Pokemon for me to see. I'm going to go for an Aqua Tail. It wasn't quite enough energy for Stone Edge, but maybe they don't know that. Okay, we get a shield. I guess that's helpful. But I think what we have to keep in mind once again, they already had 2 Pokemon with Bug-type fast moves in the lead. Either that means there's going to be a third Bug-type Pokemon in the back, or there's actually going to be a real team, or at least a real third Pokemon that's going to be a hard counter to Altaria. I get a little bit greedy here on my Overfarm. I take 2 of these X-Scissors or Aqua Jets. I think Aqua Jet is a little bit more efficient, but I guess X-Scissors are being thrown there just in case I try to catch on Cacturne. But our Sky Attack will knock out this Golisopod if it does end up landing, which it does. What is in the back, though? Our opponent is thinking here for just a second. The thing is, if I ever bring in my Cacturne, they can just go for that Fury Cutter down against us, and it's going to be a Steelix in the backline. Not just any Steelix, it's on Dragon Tail as well, so remarkably bad for both my Altaria as well as my Cacturne. In comes that Flamethrower. It is super effective. I go for the attempted play where I try to get some energy on my Cacturne, but they instantly throw Psychic Fangs, and this is embarrassing, but I have to shield this up. I don't really have any other opportunities to shield this game, and those Fury Cutters, they just ripped apart my poor Cactus once again. Not much play for us there, but GG to our opponent. Next game is a Cradily. And this matchup, if they had Bullet Seed, would be absolutely impeccable. But since they're on Acid here, they actually just straight up out-damage us. They can go for a 1-shield farm down. I won't even get to a second attack, which I don't really love to see, but I mean, at this point, I guess we might be able to whittle down a Pokemon that's pretty bad for my team through and through. We end up getting fully farmed down. That's not ideal. I'm going to go for a bit of an interesting play. I'm going to bring in Quagsire, go for some Water Guns, and catch on our Altaria, which what I'm hoping is going to be a Grass Knot. There's a chance I went for a Rock Tomb bait anyway. It is a Grass Knot, though, which means a lot of energy down the drain. I can now shield up this next Rock Tomb here, and that might make it so I can dance around at least a little bit here, which it looks like maybe that is the case. In comes a Shadow Talonflame here on the counter swap. I'm going to overfarm a little bit of energy. I know after that debuff, my Sky Attack won't knock out, and it won't even put them into Dragon Breath downrange, but what I might be able to do is I might be able to overfarm a little bit more energy, go for the Sky Attack, and then swap into my Water Gun Quagsire after the fact to snipe him down before a second fly will be reached. Down goes a lot of their HP. In comes Quagsire. We snipe him down with those Water Guns. In the backline is a Corviknight, and at this point, I feel like I likely have a way to win this game, although it could be a little bit tricky if they do end up going for a catch. In comes our Stone Edge. Our opponent at this point is going to have to go for a shield here if they want to survive, but by shielding that attack, they actually potentially open up a lose condition where now Flamethrower on my Altaria could be enough to knock him out. And the best thing as well, Payback is a lot of damage. The sand attacks don't do anything to us here, so I can just guarantee at this point that I can no-shield the attack. What a nice catch, though, by our opponent on that Cradily. But once again, I don't really think it matters. I can undercharge this fully, come back in Altaria, farm them down with this Altaria, and have Flamethrower ready to go against that Corviknight. We still have a shield. We go for the Flamethrower. At this point, our opponent is well within range where this should knock him out. And even if it doesn't, I have a lot more faster pressure. So yeah, we're able to finish up the game here. Somehow coming back from a Cradily that had so much energy in the lead. Speaking of trying to come back from something here, we see a Galarian Weezing in the lead, a massive core breaker here for both of our Altaria as well as our Cacturne. I say swap my Quagsire in hopes that they don't have a hard counter for us, but they end up coming in with an Altaria. I think the only real win condition I can think of is trying to play out the 2-shield here, try to get some shields down if possible. If I get a shield here, that is going to be nice. If they no-shield, though, that's probably game over on the spot. Yeah, I mean, I don't beat that. That's a nice call by them, though. All right, next game is going to be a Charjabug in the lead. All right, so it's a bug-type Pokemon. Not the best typing for Cacturne to see, but it's not. It's almost never going to be on Bug Bite, right? It's a fast move, so it's not the worst Pokemon, I guess, that I could possibly see here. In fact, these Sucker Punches are shredding through their HP quite a bit, and I think if I go for a Trailblaze and they let it go, I might actually just be able to go for a full Farm Down against them, so that is exactly what I'm going to do. Trailblaze does end up landing against them. They end up swapping out into an Ice Fang Hippowdon. Luckily, this time I do not bring in the wrong Pokemon here. I have brought an Altaria before into an Ice Fang Hippo, and that was not great. Instead, I bring in my Water Gun Quagsire, and they do end up shielding, actually, which is kind of interesting. I think at this point, it might be worthwhile going for a shield and a farm down here. I can come out of this matchup with a lot of HP and a lot of energy, so that is exactly what we're going to do. Down goes the Hippo. In the backline is a Quagsire of their own, actually on Mudshot, though, as the fast move. At this point, if they let this attack go, I think the Fast Food Pressure is going to be the way to win this game, and if they do end up shielding, then I guess I can go for a Trailblaze or a Sky Attack later on. Our opponent doesn't fall for the catch attempt here, but yeah, our Fast Food Pressure is going to be so overwhelming, and I think the worst thing for them is they need 2 Stone Edges to knock out my Altaria. The first one will end up landing, but they have to go for another nuke here to knock us out, and Aqua Tail is not going to be enough. That is a lot of energy down the drain. Altaria doing its job, absorbing all of the damage, and I think at this point, Shadow Cacturne can come back in, go for the Sucker Punch down here, and Sucker Punch down the rest of that Charjabug. Down goes the Quagsire, down goes the Charjabug, and Cacturne here closing out the endgame, just barely picking up the win. Honestly, Cacturne is such a fun Pokemon to use. It is so frail, but its damage output is ridiculous. And unlike Magneton, which I tried out earlier today as well, this Pokemon actually has some good matchups where it can have consistent wins and kind of leverage those wins into further matchups in the game, which is kind of fun. But, once again, I don't really recommend using this Pokemon if you want to climb, but if you want to have a lot of fun, this Pokemon is definitely for you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.